down. Right, Virginia, right? It's right. Some people say yes, some people say no. And for those of you who don't have your cameras on, use the emojis if you can, so that I can see you if I ask you questions. I thrive off your energy. I need you to be with me. Thank you, Khalid. I see you. In the chat box, right? So we have 33 people on this call. In the chat box, will you please share 1 or 2 to 3 words on how you're feeling right now? I don't know you, so if you say crappy, sad, excited, lovely, warm, tired, I don't know you, so I can't be like chasing you to be like, well, what's wrong? So just throw out 1 to 3 words in the chat box. How you doing? Let's see what happens. I'll start with mine. 1 to 3 word. I got happy and excited because I'm with you. Waiting for that thing. Here we go. Okay, calm, intrigued. Okay, Monica. What else? Somebody wrote tired, directly, excited, energetic, prepared, interested, tired, exhausted, interested, tired and sweaty from practice, tired, excited, but stressed. Yes, need sleep. Yes, me too. I was on a plane last night. I got here in California from DC at like 11 o'clock. All right, I'll take that as a great start. Thank you for sharing. Is it okay with you if I really share who I am and how I got here before we get into today's session? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Real ones. And if you are not showing your beautiful faces, use those emojis for us. Use them up. I got thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay, I'm an inclusive trainer, so I want to make sure if somebody's going to say, I don't want to see or hear from you, I'm going to include you to find out how we can fix that. Okay, so I'm going to share some slides and I'm going to tell you my story and how I got to this work and why it means something to me. And if you at all ever want to unmute when I ask questions during this, part of the session, please feel free to unmute, interrupt me, stop me, and then we'll take a pause. My name is Julia Gabor. I'm born and raised in 1968. You could tell me I look good for a 55-year-old woman. It's okay with me. Oh, I saw a smile. Thank you. Right. So, and that you see this puss on that girl's face right there. That is how I looked pretty much until my sophomore year of college. I looked mad. I looked pissy. Right. So, okay, look, here's a picture of me with 2 girls there. If you can either unmute or write in the chat box, you have 2 options. Which one do you think is Julia? Which one do you think is Julia? Okay, I'm getting left, far younger one, left, middle. Okay, left, middle, the one with the rockin' socks. Yeah, giving the side eye. Yes, who says Soraya? You think that's how you say your name, middle. Okay, so the left side, that's it, right? Rockin' socks. And the puss face, the side eye, that's me, right? I told you I had that look on my face since I was a kid, all the way up to my sophomore year. I was 19 years old before it stopped happening. And so when I was 3.5, my parents got divorced. I don't have any siblings. My parents are artists, meaning my mother is an international acting teacher and a director of theater, not movies, not like large and famous. My father was a freelance writer. The pictures that you are seeing right now, on the left side, this is me. I am 11 years old in Washington Square Park in New York City, surrounded by local street folks. And we were in a cement roller skating area where we took parks back in the day. and we made them into roller skating areas with a big boom box. And I went with my green wheels, with my green sweatsuit pants, with a green top and green suspenders. And I had a black hat and I wore braids in my hair. And I was all by myself roller skating with the local people. And I spent a lot of time alone as a kid, as a divorce from coming from a divorced family. The picture on the right, I'm a little younger. I'm like 8 years old. I went with my dad to Kentucky. My father was writing a book on vans and how people lived in them and partied like Harley Davidson rock stars. And shortly after that picture was taken, we went to eat breakfast, and my father, who was consumed with drinking, he had a heavy drinking problem, there's a name for that, told me to cross the street, and I listened to him, and he didn't look, and I got hit by a car, right? So I was okay. Everything was all right. But this was a weird time in my life. When I was 6 years old, my mother got a grant to work for prisons in New York State and teach theater games as a form of self-expression to mostly African American men. And the grant was a 2.5 year grant, and she went upstate New York to White Plains and worked there and fell in love with one of the guys who she worked with in a workshop. They did a play, and it got really good work around other penitentiaries. They toured other penitentiaries. And when he came out of prison, my mom walked into my apartment with him and said, "This is so and so. He's going to live with us. We're in love." And he was 6'4", picking hair, gold chains. And he was like, he looked down at me. I was tiny. And he looked down and he said, "You like peppermint patties and Wise potato chips and Pepsi?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said to my mom, "Oh, we're going to get along real good," because he hadn't had any of that since he was in prison. He didn't murder anyone. It was another kind of offense. The same year, my father was floating around New York City going to publishing parties. And he, like I said, he loved booze and he loved women. And he met this woman who was in a relationship, married to a husband, and they were rich people. And so when I say rich people, I mean that her father founded a very famous book company that imported and exported books from England all the way to America. And she was the president in America. And her husband, his great great grandfather, his company was building the railroad in Texas, and they struck oil, and everybody in that family was born a millionaire. And they were set up like, if you, let me come back to you, if you know about Blue Blood Money, or if you think of any of those royal like Netflix shows, they get set up, right? It's not about falling in love. They're arranged marriages, and they were never in love. So they were together from 1968 to 63, and then she met my father in 1976, and she had an open marriage where she could have boyfriends and the husband could have girlfriends. But because they had so much money between them, they did not get a divorce. And so then she became a part of my life, and she was English. She was from Britain, and she didn't like kids, and she didn't have kids. And when she visited New York City, she didn't like me around my father's studio apartment. So she rented the apartment next door, and they gave me a set of keys, and I was 11 years old. So now I'm going to come back here. I'm 16 years old here. My dad's substance abuse started to consume and confuse me. I didn't know what an alcoholic was, but I knew my dad acted funny when he drank a lot of alcohol. I did a report on it. I got very, very high grades. It was very upsetting. So I'm going to ask you guys a question, and you can unmute or you can put it in the chat box. But what do you think a girl like me, Julia, is feeling with this kind of background, and why? Why do you think I'm feeling that way? And again, you're more than welcome to unmute, but what do you think a girl like me is feeling? I got here: alone, confused and sad, distressed, abandoned, confused, sorrowful, lonely. Yeah. Okay, can only depend on herself. Yes, somebody is dialed into me. Virginia, right? Confused. Yes, lack of support. Thinking that you wouldn't want that for anyone else. Thanks, Dylan. Right? Sad, alone, confused, scared. Yes, right? 100% all of those things. So now you're getting the picture, right? About that puss face you saw, helpless. Uma, thank you, right? And then happy? No. Well, here's the other question. I'm going to come back. Do you feel like you know students or colleagues or peers that you are around right now who come from, ready, a divorced or separated home, there's substance abuse in their life, and they don't have a lot of money? Maybe an only child also, but do you know people like that who are going to your school or in any of your clubs? Can be yes or no, maybe, yes. Somebody said not that many, but it happens. And I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. So here's what we know. In Now I'm 55. I told you my true age. And I was 11 years old at that point in the story. So that means 40 something years ago, I was being raised in a certain way. And now, 40 years, 4 decades later, that has not changed. There are still people are human. They're going to get divorced. There's going to be addiction. There's going to be poverty. Like, these are true things. And that's what we deal with a lot, right? The thing that's different are programs, research, intervention, nonprofits, where we know that there are ways to help young people who show up in schools and programs that we weren't doing 40 years ago. There are more parenting books out now for parents, and there are more workshops for parents on how to raise a kid to be successful, productive, and happy. So that's the difference. Not that it's ever going to change. I think there will always be these constant problems and challenges for us, but that there are resources that we didn't have before. So let me continue. So with a kid who feels sad, lonely, depressed, confused, what happens? You make choices. Either you implode, right, or you explode. Not many don't have a reaction to that. You're knowing probably right now there's a huge mental health issue in this country. And we are working at my job as an educator, working very hard to see that we can start to touch the lives of young people so they know they have choices and help. But I didn't know that. And I went to the streets. That's what they say. My apartment, I'm showing you that building because that little apartment that I had by myself was right here. My dad's apartment was right here, but we had our own doors and our own locks. And I started hanging out in the streets, and I got into all sorts of fun kind of trouble. These are the kids I hung out with, very diverse group. We started to, do things that kids do, and I did them all the things I wasn't supposed to do. I did at a very young age because I was on my own. I learned how to lie to my mother. I told my mom that everything was great at my dad's, and I just stayed with my best girlfriend. And she and I got into just, I don't know how much I can share here, but I can tell you that all the things that you read about kids who are doing things like breaking the law, getting in trouble. I had a lot of dates. They weren't dates, right? But I was really making some really dangerous choices for my well-being. So got into a lot of trouble, and I'll tell you what saved me. I kept a B minus GPA in high school, which was just enough to pass and just enough that nobody was paying attention to me, that I was suffering because I was a precocious young kid. And I went to college at SUNY Fredonia, which was about 900 miles from New York City. And we got the urban girl out of New York. And that was the best thing that happened. I went to school, and let me tell you something, it was not easy, and it was not fun. My first year, they put me in an all-girls dorm, and I had a curfew. And I had ready living on my own, right? I like these girls. I mean, I had never seen girls who were from rural areas like this, and they had like flannel nightgowns. They set their hair in curlers, like cookies, right? They had teddy bears, they had posters on the wall, they had hot plates, they had ramen noodles, they had things to wash their clothes with, like Tide, right? I came up with like a duffel bag. Like I was 1986. If you go back, you see all the media, social media, big hair, gold chains, smoking Newports, walking through the hallways, looking in the doors of these girls in the rooms. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, why you look like that? You look funny with your hair like that. Like I had a funny accent at the time. And so it was an adjustment for me and I didn't like it, but I stayed. And then I got through it, and big transformations, longer story, but I graduated. And as soon as I graduated, I knew I wanted to work with kids in urban New York City, kids like me. So I started working with young kids in elementary school, doing just like my mom, doing theater games. I was a theater major. I followed in her footsteps. I started a theater company by myself with 4 other people. You see this picture here. We were doing off-Broadway shows. I was a waitress. I was in the hustle. And oh yeah, this is just a nice pause here. I'm a Yankee fan, just so you know. There's me in the old Yankee Stadium. If you're ball players, sorry, I see you nodding your head the opposite way. That's too bad. It's hard to be a champion a lot, you know. And so after a few years, up, I'm getting some go Astros. I knew it. I knew someone would come in, right? So I decided in 1997 that I was going to go to Hollywood and I was going to get famous and I was going to work in the movies and I was going to be a rich movie star. And then I was going to go back to New York and start a nonprofit for young people with arts and sports and academic enrichment and social services if they needed a parent. I knew I had the vision. And so I started working in LA. And look, there are some pictures, they're professional headshots of what I looked like 20 something years ago. And so that was a true thing. And I was hustling again, right? I had 5 jobs. I was picking up dog, you know what, for a living. I cocktail waitress. I was a shop girl. I was a bartender. I delivered flowers. I was a personal assistant. I did extra work in movies. And then I was a bouncer in a lesbian bar. They needed like a good looking, tough girl who could manage a crowd at the door. I was like, I got you. I'm good. Right. So I did that for a while. And then I was tapped out. I did it for 2.5 years and I had no money. I was living on credit cards. I had no health insurance. I was 32 and I thought I'd been married by now. I thought I'd have a baby. Like my life was completely upside down. I had moved 4 times in 3 years and I was out here by myself. My parents don't have any money. There's no bankrolling me. Like I made my choice and that's where I was. And I had a conversation with somebody who said to me, I'm coming back in to talk to you guys. I had a conversation. I said, I was crying. I had a breakdown. I was like dry heave crying. I don't know if you remember that as being a kid, being like, like this. And I was like, I don't have any money. And all I want to do is work with kids. And I didn't get famous and I'm not rich. And he looked at me like I was nuts. And he said to me, Julia, why do you need to have $1 million to work with young people? And I looked at him like he was crazy. I was like, what? Like, because it wasn't in my mind. I was so focused on getting the money to do this instead of doing the purpose first. And that's the conversation that got me into this work earlier than I thought. 2003, I started working an after school program in South LA where they make all those crazy movies, gang territory, middle school. And I it was so incredible. They toured me through the middle school. They said, Julia, don't touch the railings of the staircase. I said, why? They said, because they pee on them. And I was like, oh, that's where I want to work. I want to work right here. These are the young people I need to work with. And that's what launched my career. So I'm not going to go through the rest because I want to get to you. But I tell you this story because I want to talk about why I do this work. But the question I would like to ask you now is, what do you hear in this story? Like, what are some of the things that you're hearing about Julia, the girl from childhood all the way up to starting to work in education? You can, again, unmute, or you can put it in the chat box and I'll read it aloud for us. Okay, sounds like I don't really have a plan. I had determination. I was independent and strong-minded, resilient, experimental. I'm going to say, Eve, I think you mean like taking risks, like doing lots of different things. Somebody, ooh, I can't pronounce. Ud Hayan, you can correct me, said very driven and motivated, determined, spontaneous, enduring. Yes, beautiful. So yeah, I say resilience and grit. The name of my company is Kid Grit. So 6 years ago, I bumped into a friend on Facebook, and we started talking about um, he was also in the kid space, and he's a certified holistic wellness coach, and I'm a youth development specialist, and we got together and made a company and a curriculum where we work with mindfulness, growth mindset, body awareness, social emotional learning, community connection, resilience, grit, and digital and social media consciousness, helping you balance with social media and also on digital devices, because there's so much work happening with young people and us too. And now I have a company. My curriculum lives in 31 states, and I've trained over 10,000 teachers in 5 years. I have 9 people who work with me and for me, and I love this work, and it's mine. Like I created it for myself. Entrepreneurial, artistic, risk-taking, super hard, in the hustle all the time. I don't have $1 million. Like, I'm still renting an apartment. I don't own anything. I did not have a child, but I raised a lot of young people in my day, and still going on. So before I get into the activity, does anyone have any questions? Feel free to unmute or use the chat box. I see Sarah. I said no. Okay. How did you launch Kid Grit? Okay. So yeah, so my buddy and I, he's the certified holistic wellness coach. We started talking about what we thought kids needed and what other adults were not doing. Where was the gap? Where was the deficit? And why could we do it better? So if you look at my history, determined, driven, motivated, experimental, enduring, we thought, I'm not like a scholar who's like, I think kids are having problems because the data says. I'm a kid who lived a harder life, and I feel like I understand how kids, young people, need to be seen and heard. And he feels the same way. And I quit a job, and I took my only savings, which was not a lot of money. It was $75,000. That's all I had. I was 49 years old, and I put it into this company, and we built the curriculum, and then we went to conferences, and people who knew me from the field in education said, oh my God, if you're doing something, I want it. I want it, because they knew me. I built a reputation based on the integrity of my work and the authenticity of how I work with adults and young people. That's a very good question, and thank you. Oh, okay. Did I have any regrets about not having your own family? Yes. Well, yes and no. I sometimes am still very sad that I didn't, because I love young people and I would like to be with a partner. And then you get to a certain age and you can't have your own child. But I know in the work I've done on my personal growth work that this company is like the child that I gave birth to. And I know that if I had a family right now, it would be very difficult, because I'm not home a lot and I speak around the country and I'm training. And so it would be a very difficult relationship, but I'm free right now and I'm free to do this work. So that's a deep question, but I'm going to give you an honest answer. All right, so let's get to it. You all should have gotten in the chat box or sent before this call this holistic wellness wheel. And this, we have a lot of different, I'm going to change the size here. We have a lot of different wheels. This is for high school students and college students. And so it's in the wheel again, in the chat box again. I'm going to walk you through this, and I'd like you to follow along. You can do it digitally in your own computer. You can do it by hand if you printed it out. You're going to need a pen, and you're going to plot a dot. Don't use my screen, but follow along with me. Think about this is like a rating system. 0 is in the center here, and a 5. You could use 0 to 100, 0 to 10. I use 5. It's just simpler, right? 0 to 5 out here. That's your 5, right around here. 0 means I am not satisfied. Ready? Hear me roar. I am not satisfied. Not that I'm wrong or broken. It means I'm not satisfied. That's 0. 3 is like in the middle. And then out here, 5 is I'm satisfied. I got it. I feel like I'm doing good in this area. So again, it's not whether you have it, it's whether you feel satisfied with it. So I'm going to plot a dot. I give you the numbers as a reference. I will not use numbers. I will use a dot or something because I don't want it to feel like a grade. So I use a heart. So I'm going to start with relationship skills. How are your relationship skills? Could be with teachers, could be with friends, family, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. Are they strong? Do you feel like you're a good communicator? Do you feel lonely? Do you feel like you don't have the friends you want? You don't like your friend group? You're pretending, right? So I have strong relationship skills because I'm like a single person who depends on her friends for communication, and I love people. So, and I'm a good communicator. So that's like a 5 for me. Do I eat well? Yeah, right now I am because I'm home. If you got me 2 days ago, I was in DC and I don't have control of my food and I don't cook for myself. I eat awful. But right now I'm at like a 4. My organizational skills are very low right now. Right now, like this week, because I'm too busy to do everything I need to and I feel overwhelmed and I can't manage my time well. And it's very, very difficult for me. But that's just this week. I am not moving very much. Physical activity, exercise, and movement. I feel like it's just I don't have enough time in the day and my body hurts me. Do I make good decisions? Oof, I'm gonna go right in the middle because some decisions I make are awesome and literally like you can be both. I'm not making great decisions, so I'm not satisfied. I'm right in the middle. Digital consciousness and screen time, that's like totally is like a 0. I am not doing well. I have to check social media for my company. I have 1,000 jobs in my company. I'm on Zoom meetings all day. Like I watch Netflix to actually relax, but I'm actually increasing my screen time. So that's really low. My confidence is pretty high. I did a lot of personal growth work. I went to therapy. I do self-help workshops. I read, I journal, and I like myself. I worked on it. I wasn't just born confident. And so, and I speak in front of hundreds of people, right? Do I have positive stress release? Not this week. Too busy, too much going on, too much travel. Self-awareness, super self-aware, really, really reflective about who I am and how I manage myself. My study habits, I think of that as my own professional development. Right now I'm not satisfied, but I just don't have time. These are things about time. Time management and organizational skills kind of bounce off each other. My time management is better than my organizational skills because I have to do things at certain times. But it's still pretty low, so I'm not really satisfied. My social and cultural awareness, this is like, are you culturally aware of other people, other nationalities? Do you listen to different kinds of music? Do you eat different kinds of food, or do you just stick with like your own kind of food? Do you only have like one color friend or one gender friend? Like, where is your social and cultural awareness? I'm pretty high here. And self-management, how do I manage myself? Okay, so self-management is different than self-awareness. Self-management is once you know how you feel when you're self-aware, do I know how to manage big emotions, right? Do I lash out? Do I implode? Do I sign off? Do I fight? Right? So my self-management is quite good. And then will I ask for help? If any of these things are too low, am I able to say to somebody in my life, in my network, can you help me, or I need a favor, or can we just have a conversation today? So that's pretty good with me. So you followed along, and now the next part, right, is to connect your dots. So you're going to see what I'm doing here. You can use any colors, you can use markers, you can use pens, you can do digital, whatever, right? So there it is. So here's what's going to happen now. We're doing this pretty quick. We're going to we're going to do some breakout rooms. And there's going to be about I'm going to actually make them smaller. We're going to do 3 people in a room. And what you're going to do is you're going to share. Nope, that didn't work. Oh, I see. Let me see. Recreate. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to go 3 to 4 people in a room. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick a part of the wheel that you want to share, 1 or 2 pieces, and be like, I'm high here, I'm low here, I'm satisfied here, I'm not satisfied here. And the job of the listener, when you guys are in there, is to listen with an open mind if you can, and listen for similarities and listen for differences. That's it. You're going to go there for about 5 minutes. And I'm going to come and pop in. If I see that your cameras are off and nobody is sharing, I'm going to pull you out of the room and put you somewhere else, or I'm going to try to recreate the room. So please try, for the sake of the people who need this today to have this conversation, try to share 1 or 2 things about your wheel today. Remember, nothing's wrong or broken. It's just for today or this week or this time period. And it's a really nice feeling to share some of the things that are going on. So we're going to go in for about 5 minutes. Are there any questions? Feel free. Okay. All right, here we go.
Make sure you accept the join button that pops up.
Let's see. Here we go. Lonnie, Khalid, Christian, you all right? It's all right, don't worry. It's okay. Go on into your rooms, guys. Welcome back. Everyone's coming back in. That was amazing. What was even more amazing was how many people turned their cameras on in the breakout rooms and then turned them off when they came back in here. What is going on in the world? Well, there are college professors that won't let you do that, by the way. Just so you know, you better get ready to be visible up front and show those beautiful faces. So here we are. We're back. I think almost everybody's back. Let me just make sure. Oops. Nope. That's not what I want to do. All right. Okay. So here's the question. Again, now that we started to talk in the rooms, your mics are on. What are your observations? What did you notice? Either about the tool, I call the wheel the tool, about the conversation, about listening, or about yourself. What did you notice? Anything, no wrong answers. This is just an exercise. Okay, here we go. Great. A lot of factors in the wheel, hand in hand, go with each other 100%. Yeah, there is connection to it, and how they impact each other, right? Great. What else? Easier to talk to people in smaller groups. Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, Monica said, appreciate your willingness to share honestly. Rudra says, everyone seems to be more comfortable in a small group. And then, so how do you say your name? Is it Sarai?
No, it's Sarai.
Sarai. Okay,
Yeah.
but said stuff feels crazy, scary at first, but once you begin talking, right, it gets a little bit easier. That makes a lot of sense also. Yeah, so Virginia said we learned some interesting things we wouldn't have had without the wheel. Awesome, awesome. So the things on the wheel are things to think about as you become a productive, growing, introspective person. And it's usually always like looks like some weird constellation or a star. It's rare that you ever see anybody that's doing fives all the way around. Right. So that's really important to remember. And if I asked you to do the wheel during COVID, would you tell me that it would have looked different or the same? Okay, you got a different. Yes, yes, right? Very different. And the reason why I'm going to answer this for us is because external circumstances help dictate the way we are functioning. And when we don't have control of the external, it's very hard to manage the internal. The goal with the wheel is to try to learn to understand what you can manage and what you can't, and how it's going to ebb and flow. It's going to change, which is fine. Some days, some weeks you're going to work out 7 days, and then for a month you won't work out at all. I'm talking about myself. Right? Like that's what happens. Right. So you have to give yourself grace and know that these are all things to learn. And it's a great tool. A lot of people will do it like once a month to see if they chose to work on one section, maybe to see if they made like little tiny steps. So there's more about the wheel, but I have to leave some time for Q&A now. And I just wanted to give you a taste of what KidGrit does and what we developed and how it impacts. We have those wheels we have for kindergarten, first grade, second grade, middle school. We have them for people who are 101 years old, right? Like this is about humanity and behavior and understanding how to control your emotions or express yourself, and being able to build a community and talk about it, which we just did. So I'm just going to open the floor now. That was a super fast, and you guys are amazing. Thank you, Monica, for bringing me on here, and Corinne. Did I say that right? Can you say your name again?
Corinne.
Corinne. But
Corinne.
I answered
Okay.
to all of it, so.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to try to get it right, even if I'm not good at it. I try. So what kind of questions for Q&A? Ask me things. Oh, Dylan's coming in strong. If you had gone back to your teenage years, early adult years, what would you do? Would you do anything different or the same? Yeah, Dylan, that becomes like a kind of spiritual question. Like I don't mean religious. I mean, it means that every choice I made is what led me to be here where I am today. So if I had had a pristine, privileged life, the chances are I wouldn't have chosen this career or been passionate about young people. If the chances are, I don't know, but I feel like because of what happened, even though it was super painful, and I mean, in ways that I don't have time to share, it I know that that's the reason why I'm doing this work now. And any success that me and my partner Jeffrey, he had a very similar upbringing. We thought for 2 years about how we could make a difference based on our past. So while I don't wish anyone to go through hardship, it's a very good lesson around knowing that it's not permanent. And if you are willing to take risks and make mistakes and ask for help, that you can find your path, you can get through it. And it's a really good muscle to learn how to manage things that are difficult and painful. So this one, did I ever reconnect from oh yeah. So did I ever reconnect with my mom and my dad? My mom winds up being the pillar in my life, the source of strength. While she was pretty naive and she didn't know how to ask me questions about my behavior because she just didn't know, she loved me so much. She's probably the reason why I did make it through. And we're very close now. She's 82. She lives in the city. My father got sober when I was 42 years old, which let us start to build a new relationship. And so we were quite close. And, you know, again, to be totally transparent, in that wave in 2020, when COVID hit New York City, my father got sick and we lost him in that wave. So I have now fond memories of somebody who I got to reconnect with really like later in life. But you know, these challenges never stop, right? Like just when you think you're grooving and flowing, something comes along and you're like, oh, could be financial as you're an adult. It could be family. It could be career. So yes, we made connections. I feel kind of at peace with my father. And my mom is still doing great.
If I can ask, how did you find your people, right? I mean, people have obviously very different starting places, but finding that community, finding those people that believe in your passion, like how did you reach out? How did you make those connections?
In what part of my life?
As like a young adult, like maybe like right after college when you were kind of like, okay, I'm starting over and things aren't exactly as planned.
Yeah. Well, right out of college, I was doing theater, and the arts are really good for building community and being supportive. And I had already gone through a transformation in college, like emotionally, mentally, and professionally. Like being away, getting the girl out of the city was true. Like that helped me a lot. So, but being in the arts is like, you know, and doing theater, I don't know if you have any artists here, but being in a community of people who have a common goal to produce a show where you have to do blood, sweat, and tears and memorize lines and roll around on the stage like it's a community, and you get very close with people. So my first initial kind of cohort of friends were from the arts, and they were lovely. And that was really, it was great. You could express yourself, you could be ugly, you could be not perfect. The arts are about, you know, imperfection, really. And imperfection is amazing. And that's another session, by the way. So and then in my 30s out here, when I started going into young education, it was natural, right? Like people who were like-minded, who were working for nonprofits that were change makers. I found mentors. I found people who I saw them speak and I was like, I need to know you. I'm so interested. But I was fueled, like fire fueled, because I loved this work. And I wanted to do it. I thought I had a story to share that would be then something that isn't just an emotional story like I shared. I could turn it into something that would help other people. And by the way, for all of you young careerists, I chose to be a for-profit company. I am not a nonprofit company. I chose it because you can be socially responsible and a giver and a volunteer and generous in a for-profit company. And so it's good. I'm 100% woman owned. I haven't sold any parts of my company yet. But I find a lot of other mentors who are like me doing this work as a woman who are still doing good in the world. I don't know if that really answered your question. Mentor, mentor, mentor. That's really it. Find somebody that you really love and follow them around, whether it's on LinkedIn, find them at a conference. I do that still to this day. How did COVID? Yeah. So I don't work directly with kids unless something like this happens and there's a request for it. I teach teachers how to work with kids based on now research. I have again, a curriculum. And COVID, the story behind COVID is that because our partners around the country were using our curriculum in schools and after school programs, when schools shut down, they opened up their laptops on Zoom and looked at me and said, hey, we're not working with kids right now directly, but do you have anything for my staff? Because the work you do is so empowering. My staff is messed up. These teachers are not well and they can't handle it. And they're upset about Zoom and they don't know how to use it. They feel pressured. Their people are not well. People are getting sick. What can you do? And it just so happens that Jeffrey, my partner, is a certified holistic wellness coach. You can Google that, certified holistic wellness coach. And these are people who coach other people in making positive choices towards spiritual, mental, and physical life. Right. So, and just asking great questions and giving tiny little assignments. So we made sessions on Zoom the way that I worked with you guys. In the chat box, unmute, go into the breakout room. So it wasn't a webinar, right, where I talk for 40 minutes. Like, it's us together. And we made these cohorts of educators who were working on the wheel. We used the wheel and gave them homework assignments between every session. And they were, instead of doing academic homework or career homework, they were working on themselves for homework. And that got a lot of our partners through the pandemic.
There's a question about how did you overcome the fear of failing or not being where you were supposed to be?
Like, I failed all the time. I fail all the time right now. Are you kidding? I mean, failure, I'm like, how many ways can I fail today so I can learn something? You know, I think the pressure for young people right now to be perfect and get good grades and be in a million clubs and take honors and AP courses and make sure that your stacked resume for college is too much. I think it's too much because the pressure for you, if you feel like you're not doing well, the way that you interpret is that you are failing, like you're failing the world, and it's not true, right? These are just parts of learning and growing. And so I just want to say, like, you have to give yourself grace when things are not going well and ask or tell somebody out loud, right? You have to say it out loud. This is too much for me. I don't want to be one of those kids that has mental health issues because of the pressure. You have to say it in order for someone to understand that it's happening to you. And that's part of your vocabulary and learning about yourself, speaking up for yourself, and finding an outlet. So, you know, failure is important, but to be comfortable in failure is a skill. And entrepreneurs fail all the time. Any show you watch about any entrepreneur, they're going to tell you the same thing: fail, 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 fail. Right? Try it until it keeps working. Just keep trying. But if you give up, it's not going to, nothing will happen.
So for the sake of time, okay, you want to go ahead? One more? Okay.
Oh, wait, what I have, how did your teacher shape your life? Wow, you know, the first thing I'm thinking is that the streets changed my life. They shaped my life. I learned street skills. I learned how to read people. I learned instinct. I learned about humanity, right? Like, I learned about good and bad decisions on the streets. I'm still, if you see me, like, I'm dressed right now and my hair done, but like, if you see me, I'm still in sweats. I wear a baseball hat and sneakers all the time. Right? Like, that's how I looked when I was 16 years old too. I didn't wear dresses very much, but teachers, I do have some teachers. Elementary school, Lucy Rubin, she knew something was wrong with me because of my home life, and she kept me after school and she said, "How are you? I'm worried about you." And I collapsed in her arms. Once she cared about me, it changed the way that I felt in her classroom, and I felt like I could just breathe. I felt like I could breathe. And in middle school, I had a sports, he was the principal, but he was also our gym teacher. And he let the girls play with the boys in all the sports. And he showed us how strong we could be and how athletic we could be. So I felt a lot of confidence in my athleticism. In high school, don't ask me about high school. That's one of those darker times, right? And then my acting teachers, right? Letting you fail, letting you make mistakes, challenging you to think intellectually and physically and emotionally in ways that nobody else would. The study of theater, everyone should take an acting class once, because you learn about how to study people physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's part of the life skills, like those great hard skills you're going to need in any career you go into: how to feel and vibe a room, when to raise your voice when you need to do public speaking, how people are interpreting your energy, right? Like, that came from theater. So there's that. And thank you. I got a really nice direct message from Rudra. I appreciate that. That's lovely. Makes me very happy. She said it, she gave me a compliment.
So for the sake of your time and the students, we really try and start it at 6:30 and end at 7:30. I know you're a couple hours behind, but we are so grateful, students, if you would join me verbally or in writing and emojis, sharing our gratitude for Ms. Gabor for giving her time today. I think, so we met when you were at the Tiger Woods Foundation, and I loved your passion about what you do. It is so heartfelt, but to hear kind of the backstory of why you wanted to provide something to young people that maybe you lacked in some way, shape, or form is even more powerful, and such a beautiful story. So thank you for taking the time today. Your passion is still palpable, and I love that so much. So thank you. There's lots of love from students. And Corinne, I'm going to turn it back over to you if that's all right.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, students, for joining us tonight. I will send you a follow-up email tomorrow just with details for next week's session, where we have a representative. She's the Dean of Curriculum and Activities at the Columbia Business School. She'll be back with us next Thursday, or she'll be with us next Thursday, the 19th. I'll send you the link to register for that, and also just a quick survey to get your feedback from tonight. And hopefully you guys will join us next week and for our future Distinguished Speaker Series through this semester and next semester. So, Ms. Gabor, thank you again for joining us tonight. Students, thank you for your interaction and talking in your small groups and things like that. And we look forward to having you participate again soon. You guys have a great evening. Thank you.
Her email is in the chat, so she's making